Marketing Monday, and you know what that means. Today we're going to be talking about art marketing, and today we're going to address the following art marketing questions, and whoever shows up live to ask their questions. I'm too shy to post my work on social media. What's your recommendation? I don't like doing commissions. Can I get by without them? How often and when should I post on social media? How do I get into juried art shows? A lot of artists think marketing and selling are dirty words. Will you address that? Why is it important to build a brand as an artist? Or is it? And of course, if you have a question, you can come on live. Welcome to Marketing Monday on Art School Live. I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazines. I've been working with artists, galleries, art people, painting over 2 decades. I've taught thousands of artists how to paint through various means. And I've done marketing my entire life, marketed lots of products, marketed products for other people, have more decades of experience doing that than anything else. And so I'm going to help you with your marketing. I'm also an author of an art marketing book. So we're going to get right to it. And please know that you can go live if you wish. We can put that slide up. So you just go to artschool.live/stream and then follow the instructions. And then when you do that, you can go live. So if you have a question or a follow-up question, I want to say happy Canada Day to our Canadian viewers. It's 4th of July week, and a lot of people are going to be lazy this week. I get it. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to hot dogs and potato salad. Yeah, that's deadly, that stuff. Okay. All right. So the first question is, Deborah Watson says, I have a Facebook and Instagram, but I'm too shy to post my work. Do you have any recommendations for me? Well, realizing that you're shy is half the battle, Deborah. Believe it or not, I was shy. Hard to believe, I know. And I was very introverted and I didn't want to put myself out there. And I had self-esteem and, I had a lot of self-esteem issues, confidence issues is what I'm looking for. And, and it got in the way. And I'll tell you, one time I had this job. I was doing photography. I had this job at a wedding. I've told this story before, maybe you've heard it. And I was a wedding photographer, which is a little hard to do when you're kind of introverted and shy, because you got to be like, move over here, do this, stand up, move, do that. And I did a wedding, and guess who was at the wedding? Well, it turned out that I was photographing the recording engineer for the Bee Gees, the musical group back in the 70s. And the Bee Gees invited me. I was at the wedding. I photographed the reception. They invited me to an after reception party, and I turned them down. Why? Because I was too shy. I had interviewed at another time. I was working at a radio station. And I went to a press conference with the great comedian Red Skelton. He's dead now. But he was one of the greats at the time. And I went to a press conference, and he talked to me for a minute, and I was kind of shy, looking down. And he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Indiana." He said, "I'm from Indiana." And we chatted about that for a second. He said, "It's my wife's birthday tomorrow. I don't have a car." He said, "Would you take me shopping?" And I said, "No, I can't. I have to get back to work." And I did it because I was shy. How foolish. And so I missed out on going to a party with the Bee Gees. I missed out. And after that, I thought, I got to change something about myself because I'm too shy. And I had to work on my self-confidence. And Deborah, you can conquer this. You can get over being shy. A lot of people do it. I've met and talked to thousands of people who have overcome it. There are people who will put in the comments, I'm sure today, how they overcame it. And if you just realize that you're shy and that it's getting in your way, then you need to figure out how to overcome it. Now, you can go see somebody. You can just start putting yourself out there. That's what I did, is I just started taking risks. I would tell myself, I'm going to just introduce myself randomly to one person today and talk to them and, not look at my toes. And you're not going to die. It might be uncomfortable, but the thing that nobody tells us when we're kids, the secret to life. Are you ready for this? The secret to life is being uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, you see, everyone who's done anything great, people who have built skyscrapers, people who have won major awards, people who have raised money for businesses, people who've done amazing things, they started out being insecure about those things. Nobody has pure security, but you know what? They fake it till they make it. And you have to learn how to fake it till you make it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Worst that happens is you're probably going to get laughed at if you put yourself on social media, or embarrassed, or you might get a rogue comment. But remember, you don't even know these people. And if you do, so what? You're gonna not, you have to learn that you're going to offend some people once in a while. When you're in the public, and being on Instagram or Facebook is being in the public, when you're in public, you have to understand that there are always going to be haters. I have tons of them. And I just tell myself, I'm not even going to read the comments, because I don't want, I take that stuff to heart and it bothers me. And so I just ignore it. Put yourself out there. Do something, you will build resistance. You do one thing, you're going to get a little better at it. Next time, that gives you a little bit more confidence, and so on and so on and so on. Ask yourself this: is the risk of being shy worth the risk of living a mediocre, halfway, not what you want to do life? Because you're allowing yourself, you see, the issue here is, this is yourself. This is your self-talk. This is you saying, I'm afraid to do that. We're all afraid. We're just all afraid at different levels. We're all just scared little kids, right? And most of us have our issues because of something somebody did or somebody said when we were little. I was bullied. I was the fat kid in school. And, in gym, the guys used to snap the towels at me and call me fatty. I couldn't climb the rope like other people could, and they'd laugh at me when I when I failed. And that stuff, I internalized all of it. Sometimes it's something our parents say. I had one thing my dad said to me one time. He said it in joking and passing, but it stuck with me, and it ruminated in my head for 20 years, until I finally said, "Oh, he was just joking." You have to get beyond that stuff. So just get beyond it. You're not a child anymore. You need to do this. Get over it. There. How's that for being firm? Or at least try a couple little things. Okay. Now, here's one from Sharon Ward, who says, I do not like to do commissions. Can I get by without doing commissions? Well, Sharon, I'm with you. I don't like to do commissions either. I took on a commission. It was a big one, a giant one, like 4 feet by 5 feet. Somebody wanted this big painting, and they told me the painting they wanted. They wanted it of a particular spot, and they wanted their children, 2 of their children in it, wearing backpacks. And I thought, okay, I'll do this. And it was a really fun opportunity, and it really was pushed me. But here's what I found I didn't like about it. I didn't like when I didn't feel comfortable employing some artistic license. Like, they gave me a photo, and I did go to the place, and I did do a study from life. But I felt like, to make the composition better, I need to move this tree or change this a little bit. And I felt a little awkward doing that in a commission setting, because I thought, these are the kind of people who might say, well, I wanted that tree there. I ended up doing it a little bit my way and a little bit their way, and they seemed happy with it. So let's hope they were. But it took me 2 years, and it shouldn't have taken me 2 years, but because I painted it, scratched it, scraped it down, repainted it over and over and over again. And after that, I said to myself, I'm not going to do any more commissions, right? And then what did I do? I took on another commission. And I went through the same stuff, and so I just realized, it's not for me. I don't really want to do them. I don't need to do them to make my living. You might need them. If you make a certain percentage of your living doing commissions, you might need those commissions. And so you might want to change your attitude about them. The other thing you can do is you can say to people, listen, um, I will do commissions, but only on the following terms. First off, this is what I get. I'm going to give you a preliminary sketch or drawing or something for approval. After that, I'm going to do what I want to do. And please know, I move trees, I change light, I change colors, I might make it more impressionistic. I've got to do whatever I feel is needed for this painting. And if you're willing to do that, I need a third down or a half down or something, and then I need my payment at the end. Now, if you don't like it, then I'm stuck with the painting, and so you have to deal with that. How do you do that? I need to be paid up front for the whole thing anyway, or if you don't like it, I'll keep it, I'll sell it. You have to decide what you're going to do, but make sure you kind of put some parameters around yourself, and that might help a little bit. Looks like we have Neil McMillan on. Neil, welcome to Art School Live.
Hey, Eric,
Marketing Monday.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you, sir. I'm hearing myself feedback, so I'm going to mute myself. You go right ahead and ask.
Okay. If you were to imagine a masterpiece of art marketing, a campaign that would make the art world take notice and propel an artist's career into the stratosphere, what would be the most innovative, daring, and effective strategy you would employ, and how would you measure its success?
Wow, that's you don't ask tough questions, do you? All right, Neil, I'm going to mute you because I want to make sure that I'm not feeding back when you're doing this. That if I were to do, well, let me just tell you this. I've done this, and I went to. I'll give you a couple of stories. These are not art stories, but I will give you an art story with it as well. But I had this guy come to me when I owned my radio stations, and he said, I have a little bitty store and I would like to grow it. And I would like to grow it into a big store. And I said, well, how committed are you to that? He said, I'm committed. I said, no, really, how committed are you? I said, because if you want the results, you have to be committed up front to the expenses. He says, well, what's that look like? I said, well, I'll build a plan for you, and I'll build you 3 different versions of the plan, but the best one's going to get you the most results, the fastest, and it will get you tremendous results. So I built a campaign for him, and I said, listen, I want you to run. I gave him ideas on creative, and that's important because there are 3 legs to the stool, and it's media, marketing, and message, right? What media are you using? Media being like Instagram is a media, or television or radio or magazines. Those are each a media. What is the media? What is the market? Who am I going after? And what is the message I'm going to say, right? So anyway, this guy said, here's how much I can spend. And so he committed to the best plan. I said, listen, if you want to do this right, you've got to commit to this for 3 years. I said, you're gonna feel like after about 6 months, you're not seeing any results. I said, it's happening. It's just that you're branding yourself. You're having to get people in the mode of knowing your name and thinking about you, and you're building trust, and it takes time. I said, you just watch what happens. And this guy was very progressive. And so we took this little tiny furniture store. He followed the plan. He did the media, and it happened so fast. It happened a lot quicker than I thought it would in his particular case, because we ran a lot of frequency and we didn't change the ads a lot. The one thing people do is they constantly think changing their ads is a good idea, but you've got to keep in mind that sometimes people are just noticing them after seeing him 7 times, right? And so you've got to be willing to kind of keep the same messaging out there. You can look for variations, but I wouldn't go too crazy with that. And then Neil, what happened is first thing he did is he moved into a new store, and he ended up with this big warehouse building that was 4 times the size of his current store. And then he ended up with 3 other stores that were bigger. So he had 4 stores in total. I took his business. He followed my advice, and I took his business. And I said to him, by the way, I said, I want you to stick with one media, and that's me. And then when you're ready, I'm going to tell you when to go with other media. And then I said to him, okay, here's when I want you to go on TV. Here's when I want you to go on other radio stations. And because I knew that I couldn't grow him as big as possible with just one audience, but the first thing I wanted to do is to own that audience and help him own that audience, and then expand him to the next level and the next level and the next level. Okay, so that's one story. Now, the next story is I did the marketing for a dentist in San Francisco. And he was a really great guy, and he was my dentist, and we were kind of talking. Well, I wasn't talking. I was like, anyway, we became great friends. And he said, I really want to grow my business. What can I do? And I said, well, I know a lot about you, and I know a lot about dentistry based on what you've told me. And I said, I'll develop a campaign for you, but if you do this campaign, you got to be willing to stick with it. And he said, well, what is it? I said, it's going to be controversial. So the first thing I did is I bought local radio in San Francisco, one radio station only. And I built this whole campaign about how improper care of your teeth causes heart disease, which is true. And I really exploded on that concept. And the idea being that, if you're not keeping your teeth clean, if you're not going to the dentist, if your bacteria is the closest to your bloodstream, and it causes heart disease, which, by the way, is totally documented. And his phone just rang off the wall, and he called me. He said, I can't book any more appointments, pull the radio. And so that was the one time, right? And then there was another time he decided he wanted to build his teeth whitening business, but it was part of a franchise. And I said, look, if you advertise the franchise in your ads, you're going to be building the franchise for about 10 other dentists who have this franchise. So I came up with a name for his product, and we didn't mention the franchise, and we advertised that. Again, the phones rang off the wall, and he was booked solid, and he was crazy busy. And then the other franchise owners complained to the franchise, and the result was that he pulled the ads because he couldn't take the heat. That's where message comes in handy, Neil, because if you blend in, think about paintings. Think about an average painting, an average landscape painting. I go to my event, Fall Color Week or Adirondacks, my retreats, and you see a sea of paintings. You go into a room, and inevitably one painting in there, one artist in there will stand out head and shoulders above the rest, right? In this particular case, last time I did it in the Adirondacks, there were 2 of them. One of them was John McDonald, and one of them was Lon Brouwer. And, out of all the paintings in there, now there were a lot of good paintings. I'm not suggesting there weren't, but those 2 were like everybody was drooling over them because they stood out. Well, the same thing is true in a sea of advertising. If you're advertising in my magazines like Plein Air or Fine Art Connoisseur, you want to look for a way you can stand out. What is going to make your ad stand out? What's going to make you different? If everybody is zigging, how are you going to zag? And so really a great campaign has those 3 elements. It has the message, market, and media. So you want to have, if you have 2 of the 3 elements, you're not going to be as successful. if you have a really, really strong, powerful message combined with a lot of frequency, a frequency meaning over and over and over and over again to the point that you're sick of it. You just keep going over and over again. I've watched careers explode. Now, I have in my head how to get somebody from a level of unknown to a level of a Richard Schmid in 10 years. Now, the reality is that you can blow that up a lot faster by spending more money, increasing frequency, and having more standout messaging. Now, you can't necessarily get to the painting ability of a Richard Schmid in 10 years. Now, that's a whole different animal. But in terms of brand, and by the way, painting ability goes along with brand, but I can give you examples of people who had powerful brands who sold tons of money, but maybe could not paint in the same way that Richard Schmid could, right? A great example of that would be Thomas Kincaid, right? Who I met for dinner one night. He offered me a job running his company. And, um, you know, his work is not the same style as a Richard Schmid. But people loved his work. It wasn't necessarily what I loved, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. But to get, if you want to be branded like a Bert Silverman or a Richard Schmid or something, it takes a lot of time, but it takes a whole lot more than that. We're going to talk about that. Neil, I hope that answered your question. Do you have any follow-up to that question?
Let me see here. Well, my follow-up question was, what are 3 effective strategies that you've seen artists use to consistently sell their work and build a loyal collector base? And how can I implement those strategies into my art business?
3 effective strategies. Well, the most effective strategy, actually, strategies and tactics are different things. I think the question really fits better to say 3 effective tactics, because a strategy is, what is my overall direction? Who am I going after? What am I trying to accomplish? And the tactics are, how do I do those things? So probably the most important tactic, and of course I would say this because I'm in this business, but I'm in this business because I know it works, and that is advertising. If advertising to a market that is flooded with people who buy paintings, right? I have this saying that I always use, which is stand in the river where the money is flowing, right? When you are in an environment where there are known people who buy things, known people who buy art, that environment, let's make a comparison. You get a magazine like Fine Art Connoisseur, which has a lot of really super wealthy art collectors, including 310-ish billionaires. I know because I helped build the magazine. I mean, I own it. And so I know that there's a lot of wealthy art collectors reading it. I also know there's a lot of art collectors who are, well, not as wealthy, but, not billionaire wealthy. But I also know there's a lot of people reading it. Now, you could say, well, I'll go in Time Magazine. Well, Time Magazine will have, 10 million readers. I don't know if it even exists anymore, but they would have 10 million readers, and an ad in Time Magazine would probably be $50,000 or $100,000, maybe $1 million. And yet the likelihood of reaching as many art collectors of a certain type would be lower in that environment. See, the one thing that happens all the time, and my sales team run into this all the time, is people get seduced by numbers, right? So somebody will call them and say, well, we have more readers. My circulation guy was at a magazine convention one time, and he sat down with the circulation guy of one of our competitors at the time, not a competitor anymore. And the guy said, we made a real big mistake. He said, we decided we wanted to bump our numbers up and we wanted to look really, really big and successful. So we did a campaign where we sold $5 subscriptions. And he said, we sold every school teacher and every art loving person in the world. He said, we increased our circulation by 50,000 people He said, the problem is they don't buy any art. And so now the problem is, you know, we had to pay, we are losing money on each of those subscriptions. We're having to pay to fulfill those subscriptions. We'll never do that again. And he said, don't get seduced by that. He said, the reality is your magazine has a lot of art collectors and you don't have that many of them. But he said, it doesn't matter. What matters, you know, you have a more likely chance of selling a single painting to a few thousand really dedicated, wealthy, spending art collectors than you are 100,000 or 50,000 people who don't buy paintings. So there's that. So the question then goes to advertising. Messaging, I think, is really critical. I would make a standout message when everybody else is showing a picture of the painting and putting the name of the artist at the top. I'd do something completely different. And if you notice, there are two standout advertisers that I have. One of them is Michelle Jung and the other is Charlie Hunter. They do things differently and they stand out in a sea of advertising. So you look for a way that you can stand out and do something else. I think the third thing that I believe is really critical in all of this is that you want to build a list and use your advertising to offer something for free to build a list, because there's nothing like owning your own media. If you buy ads from me, you're going to have to spend a few $1,000s to get those ads. But if you have your own list and you can send out emails to your list on an appropriate basis, we send out a lot. It depends on what you're marketing. If you're sending out notices 2, 3, 4 times a month, you're probably fine. And saying, hey, here's something new I painted, or here's a sale I'm having, but making sure that you're also making it interesting and entertaining. It's a whole nother thing I talk about in my book, where you want to make sure that what you're sending is of value to people. So you want to send more things of value than things that are pitchy. And so that probably is my answer. I hope that helps, Neil.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank, man. All right. Let's see if we have somebody else here, and then I'll get to the other questions. We have Marilyn. Hello, Marilyn.
Hi,
Welcome. Where are you from?
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
All right. I have an employee there and a good friend there.
It's a big area.
Yeah. How can I help you?
Oh, excuse me, a little hoarse today. I am very late in life getting started with my art, and working very hard on improving my sketching skills and drawing skills. I guess I really like the idea of doing commission work. So I guess is possibly the best approach to kind of start letting people know that I am interested in that.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I don't know the level of your artwork, but do you feel like you're ready? Nobody ever feels entirely.
I've been in an atelier with Sandra Angelo.
Oh, wow.
And learning a great deal about the realistic drawing, and dearly love animals and drawing the animals. And
okay, so you want to do pet portraits as commissions?
Kind of, yes. What
is your ideal? If you had to say what am I going to be happiest doing, what is it going to be?
Okay, so I would love to be able to take I guess a person's love for their cat, their dog, the horse. And kind of take their collection of pictures, or be able to acquire my own from them if the animal is still alive, and just make the personality of that pet be exactly what that person sees every day.
Okay. All right. Terrific. And do you have any geographical restrictions?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. What I would probably do, Marilyn, is I would probably put together a show of your work where you have examples of where you've done this, where you were putting together the personality of the animals. And I would figure out, and this is y- a little hard to figure out, but I would ask myself, where do the wealthy people live? And they don't have to be mega wealthy, they don't have to be billionaires, but somebody who can afford to spend money on a luxury item like a painting of their pet. Now, um, what are the trigger points? You ask yourself this: what are the trigger points of my pet, and when they want to remember their pet? Now, I have two elderly dogs, and I know that we're going to face the inevitable sometime in the near future. I don't know how long. I hope it's not soon, but there are things that I'm starting to think about, like I know these sweet little animals are going to be gone soon. And so what have I done? Well, the first thing that I've done is I've had two different artists that I know do paintings of them. All right. Now, I knew where to go for that, but most people don't know where to go for that. Now, I have a wall of paintings of of deceased dogs. And I know it's crazy. One of them is wearing, one I did myself is wearing a uniform. And so I think these are treasured items, and they've been treasured items for hundreds of years. If you look through you go to art shows and art museums, there's lots of paintings of people's dogs and horses and things because they treasure them. Um, so I would ask myself, what are the trigger points that make people want to have something? And the trigger points are probably death or near death. And now, you might want to figure out, is this an appropriate time or not? But here's what's happening to us. We're in the vet constantly, right? We probably are in the vet a couple of times a month at least. And if there was a show hanging in the office of your vet, of your work, and it said, we accept commissions, except I don't like the word commissions because people don't know that word. That some people do, but I would put together a little sign, a tasteful little sign that says, my specialty is capturing the personality of your special pets or friends or whatever. And if you're interested in having a painting made of your animal, uh, please contact me at this information or visit this website, or have a QR code would be best. And then that way you're putting the message in their head, right? Because they're constantly in and out of there. Now, people are so in love with their pets. Some people are going to do it when they're young. Some people are going to do it when they're old. Some people might do it at different stages of their lives. What you want to do is put an example of the kinds of pets that you want to paint that are going to be in there. So dogs, cats, maybe horses. People aren't probably bringing horses to the vet. The vet's going to them. So the other thing is, I used to rent an office from a guy who was a horse guy, and we had to accept the office decorated as it was. It was the tough days, the old days. We didn't have any money, and there were horse paintings everywhere. I didn't know they were originals. I wouldn't have known the difference at the time. And he said, "Be careful with these paintings because I paid a lot of money for them." I don't know what that meant, but he had somebody commission all of these horses that he owned. So I have a friend who owns horses. He goes to the track to practice with his horses once or twice a week. He does races with his horses. Horse people have horse people hangouts. I don't know what they are. Here in Lake Placid, for instance, we have the Lake Placid Horse Show. And the horse show they have tents and they have vendors. And wouldn't it be cool to have a tent filled with paintings of horses? I would imagine, horse people, for the most part, have to spend a lot of money. I've heard stories about spending millions of dollars a year on taking care of their horses. I mean, they have, these massive trailers and trucks and semis and take them around the country to shows. if they're investing that much money in their horse, they probably want to remember him. So I would look for places, there are situations, and this is true for anything. There are situations where it's a fit. Don't go broad, go narrow, right? So I wouldn't advertise, for instance, I probably would not advertise pet portraits. I might advertise pet portraits and fine art connoisseur, but horse portraits, probably not. But I would look for what do all the horse people with money read, and I'd try to get a story in there, get a cover. Joanne Manji ended up, she's a dog painter. She ended up getting a cover of the ASPCA magazine or something, and they bought a portrait from her and they hang it in their museum of portraits of dogs. And so you just kind of get to know the area and so on. Does that help at all?
It does actually. It made me think that I have a cousin out in California who I've noticed. I haven't spoken to him for probably over a year, but he built a horse venue, come to think of it, Galway Downs. So yeah, I guess I need to reconnect with my cousin.
Okay, well, I think that's a great thing. The research is always an important component, and I would depending on where you live, I'd start local, because local's easier, and you might not ever need to go national. But for instance, my friend that has horses is in Cleveland. I would imagine there's a big horse country in the South, down around where you are. And I would just start digging around and find some horse people and talk to them and say, where do you go? Where do you hang out? Are there bars that you hang out in? Is there clubs? When are there shows? Can you buy booths at shows? I'll tell you another story. This is unrelated, but related. This friend of mine said, there's this guy who goes around and he sells jewelry, expensive jewelry, and he buys a booth at the Barrett car auction, Barrett Jackson car auction. And in that booth, he sells, $10, $15, $20,000 diamond bracelets, and he's selling a ton of them. And the reason is because the guys go and they spend $50,000 or $100,000 on a car and they feel guilty. So they come back and they say, "Hey, honey, I bought a car, but I bought you a bracelet." There are other ways that you can be related to the venue and the interest area. Well, thank you, Marilyn. Let us know how that goes.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay. Next to the questions. If you guys want to come on live real quickly, let me just show you the slide one more time. Just go to artschool.live/stream. And if you want to come on live, we would love to have you. And also welcome today. Glad you guys are here. I can't go into the comments and read through comments when I'm doing this. Okay. Okay, let's see here. From Katrina. To stay visible on social media, how many times should you post every day? Some say it doesn't matter how many times, as long as you have something to say. Others say 9 times a day to hit different time zones and regions. What is your take on it? Katrina, social media is a big animal. It's hard to tame. It's not easy because there's so many different options, different ways of approaching it. There's lots of gurus. All of them are trying to sell you something, sell you a course. I bought a couple of courses on Instagram. They were very helpful. Did they help me? Maybe not much, but it boils down to what am I willing to do? But let me back up the Jeep here for just a second, and let's go back to the root of marketing. Why do you want to stay visible on social media? You see, social media is a media. It's a marketing vehicle. The good news is you can get a lot of free marketing on social media. The bad news is you don't necessarily know who your audience is. You can look and see who they are, but do you know if they're an art collector or a fellow artist? And so you could be talking to people all day long on social media, and you might not sell a thing. And you might be, so the one thing you want to do is ask yourself, what is my purpose? What is my goal? Staying visible can mean a lot of things, reinforcing your bad girl image or your bad guy image, or trying to be a Kardashian and be in the height of fashion, Or what do you really want to accomplish? What message do you want to send about yourself and about your artwork? What do you want people to think? What actions do you want them to take? And then design your program. Because if you don't have that conversation with yourself first, you're just throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks, right? So you want to have a feel for what you want to accomplish. It's almost impossible with social media to do it all well because there's so many. Usually you can do one really well if you have the time and you devote yourself. You got to spend a lot of time on it. I have a team of people who do social media with me, and I do some of it myself. But I have some pages that have a few 100,000 followers on them. My personal page on Instagram is relatively small. I've only got 21,000 followers there. I'm at 5K as my limit on my Facebook. And then I have another called Eric Rhodes Publisher on Facebook that has only 15,000. And I'm putting some stuff out there, but most of my attention is going to the ones I have 200,000 on, because that's where I'm able to be the most effective. You want to have a specific strategy for each. You're going to have a different strategy for Facebook than you will for X or Twitter, for TikTok, for LinkedIn, et cetera, YouTube. I get most of my whack from YouTube. A lot of you are watching it on YouTube now. I have, over 100,000 followers, 130,000 followers on YouTube, and even Pinterest. So it's hard to keep up with them all. So you got to figure out, where do you want to be? What purpose do you want? I'm on TikTok. I never do TikTok anymore. I just found it too annoying for me to do it. So I have an account there, but I don't do much there, because it doesn't accomplish my goals. And I know what my goals are. I know who the demographics are that I want to reach. So here are a few things that you do need to understand, though. Algorithms change constantly. Social media people are always trying to figure out how to make things better, more effective. For instance, it used to be that hashtags were really important. Now they don't mean anything. All right. They were all the rage. Now they're not. Overuse of hashtags actually will get you banned or penalized. And when Meta launches something new, Meta is Facebook and Instagram, they will expose you to more people if you use what's new. Like when they launched Reels, they wanted you using Reels, and they still want people using Reels because they're trying to compete with TikTok. And Reels is a really big deal right now on YouTube. So YouTube is pushing you out more on your Reels on YouTube. I'm not doing them. I should be, but because it's a big deal for them to compete. So also be really careful about what you post. If you're posting nudes, even though it's art, even though you think it's perfectly fine, if somebody complains, you're going to get blocked, and you might get blocked instantly. The algorithm knows, and there are people who are not getting pushed out to as many people because Instagram doesn't want to deal with the noise, right? So I have one of my artists had close to 1 million followers. He lost his account because he insisted, even though I said to him, stop posting nudes, and he kept doing it. It's art. Well, he lost 1 million followers that it took him years to get. Never gets it back. So be careful about that. Different platforms need different attention. I like to do 1 to 2 times a day on Instagram and Facebook. X, I should be doing 2 to 3 times a day because it goes by quicker. The hot thing to do on X right now are to do threads, where you say, I'm going to tell you the 10 things, and then they click through to your account and there's the 10 things. The key to that is get the metric where they spend more time on it, because on X now you can make money. If you have a certain size audience, they will pay you money for keeping people on your account. So there's a lot of things like that. Hope that's helpful. Let's see here. The next one comes from, oops, I lost it. Hang on a second. There we go. Let's see. Next one comes from Yvette Alvarado. Yvette, how does one get into jured plein air paintouts, or how does one get selected? Because I wanted to do the ones that are here in California. Well, Yvette, we talked about branding. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more before we go. The key is to getting the key to getting into anything jured is to have a brand. I kid you not. I hear from a lot of my advertisers that tell me that sometimes 3 months in, 6 months in, after they've frequently repeated their ads, they start getting invited to juried shows. They start getting invited to galleries. They start getting invited to do workshops or speaking engagements just because of that visibility. So visibility plus repetition plus time equals brand exposure. And so that's probably one of the best ways. The other thing I would do is I'd send an email to the organizers and just say, hey, bucket list for me. I want to be in the Laguna event. You know, how do I submit? What do I do? What do you pay attention to? And then whatever they tell you, do that. I there's a story that an artist told me. I won't mention names here because I don't have his permission. But an artist wanted to be in one of the big Western shows, and he applied 9 years in a row. Now we think of this artist as a major deal. He's a big artist. He told me I applied 9 years in a row and got rejected 9 years in a row, and I kept applying. And now he gets in, and they sell 30, 40, $50,000 paintings all day long. So it's worth just to keep doing it. Just keep yourself visible, keep yourself out there. If your name is known, people think about this. If I'm holding a plein air event, what do I want to do? I want to attract people. If I'm holding plein air live or realism live or watercolor live or one of those events, what do I want to do? I want to attract people. I'm going to look and see how many followers you have. I want to see how many workshops you're selling out. I want to see how much stuff you're selling. I want to know that you're a brand. And that's the same thing for juried shows. They want people who are going to bring attention to their show. And so they want big names, and they want to give chances to other people as well, but they want people who are on their way up, and those people who are on their way up are visible. The other thing I want to mention about this is I had a big name come to me and said, I used to be in all the juried shows, and I haven't been invited to any of them for 10 years. I said, huh, what changed? He says, I don't know. He says, I'm doing everything the same. I said, are you still doing art shows? Are you doing shows? Oh no, I gave that up. It's too hard. I said, are you still advertising? He says, no, everybody knows who I am. I said, there's your answer. And so he had given up on all the things that made him famous. And all of a sudden people weren't asking anymore. When you build your fame, if you don't keep it up, people forget very quickly because other people are taking that space. Okay, let's see here. The next one, whoops, I've just lost everything. Here we go. Okay, we don't have any more call-ins. And so the next one is from Kat. A lot of artists feel that marketing and selling are dirty words. Can you address that? Yes, I can, Kat. I'd start asking yourself, why do you believe that? Why do you think marketing is evil? Why do you think that selling is evil? I mean, where does it come from? It probably comes from bad experience. I hate going to car dealers because I was so used to them being pushy and sleazy and lying to me and manipulating me and trying to get me into the closing room. And, I don't like that. And I finally started buying cars online, so I didn't have to deal with that. You have to ask what fits your self-image. I don't want any of you to do pushy, manipulative, sleazy, but putting yourself out there is different. As I matured, I realized that I had to learn to sell, and I had to learn to market, because if I didn't, nothing would happen. And that's exactly what happens. When you don't advertise, nothing happens. And so at least advertising, something happens. And advertising frequently, more happens. Now, a lot of people want to keep it pretty calm and pretty cool. A lot of people want to push the limits. That's up to you. You get to do it however you want to do. But, selling's a part of life. If you have kids, you're selling. You have to sell them on telling themselves they're not sick, get out of bed, you're going to school. You have to sell them on eating their broccoli. You have to sell them on doing their homework. You have to sell them. If you push them on everything, it's not going to work. You have to pull. Selling is pulling. Manipulation and sleazy, that's pushing. You don't want that. So selling I always say, it's like when you're in class. I remember vividly, for some reason, I remember being in the 5th grade, and it's like, oh, I know the answer to that. You're raising your hand, you're waving it, you're doing anything to get the teacher to pay attention. That's what marketing is, really. You're just trying to wave to get attention. Is it sleazy or manipulative or evil or dark to put an art show of your beautiful paintings in a local restaurant? Is that sleazy or manipulative? No, it's not. So, is getting a gallery to sell your paintings sleazy or manipulative? No, it's not. So just realize that you don't have to be manipulative. You don't have to be evil. You don't have to go down that road. You get to control yourself. You get to control how you're marketed. You know, you have to learn to put yourself out there, and you have to learn to put yourself out there more than you think you need to be. That was a big lesson for me, because I had the president of some organization say to me, he says, you need to put yourself out there more. I thought, I'm already out there. He says, no, you need to put yourself out there 10 times more. And I did. I followed his advice, and big things happened from that. So you need frequent exposure to sell things if you want to sell paintings. Now, I'll tell you real quickly. I flew to London at the request of an art dealer. She had discovered this painter who was, in her words, as brilliant as Monet, who worked for the post office, came home at night and painted, and had a house full of paintings from 60 years of painting, or 40 years of painting, and asked me to go see his work and to talk him into selling his work. And I looked at his work and I was blown away. I mean, it was incredible work. And I said to him, you realize, of course, that you could be touching a lot of people's lives by putting your work out there. He said, I just do it for me. And I said, well, you realize, of course, that you're very good. He said, well, that's good to hear. He says, but I'm just doing it for me. I said, wouldn't you want other people to find it? He says, no. I said, well, what's going to happen is that you're going to die someday, and somebody's going to discover this in your basement, and some relative of yours is going to make $1 million off of your artwork. He says, I'm okay with that. He says, I don't need the money. And no matter what I did, I couldn't talk him into doing it. So I don't know whatever happened to him. He's probably not living anymore. That's been 20 years at least. So anyway, that's one thing. Okay, now I'm going to talk about building your brand. I want to just check any more lives. No more lives. Okay, you guys should be coming on live more. So here's a question from, it doesn't say, oh, it's part B from Cat Mellers. Okay. We hear a lot about building brand. I don't think most artists consider themselves as a brand. Is that really important? Why? When you look at the greats, living artists like Schmid, Green, Silverman, Ginsberg, isn't time the way to build brands? Well, yes and no. Let me ask you this. How many brilliant artists out there from the era of Schmid, Green, Silverman, and Ginsberg that are still alive are virtually unknown today? I'm going to say lots of them. And there are lots of artists, and I encounter them all the time because of my work. There are lots of artists who are equally as brilliant as some of the greats, equally as brilliant, yet nobody will ever know who they are. Nobody's ever heard of them. Why? Because they don't market. They have the time. They have years and years and years, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Bert Silverman's in his 90s. He's probably been painting for 60 or 70 years. Max Ginsberg, same thing. And I talked with Richard Schmid about marketing one day. He was very deliberate. He was not selly. He was not manipulative, but he did things that kept him visible, like art shows, like books, because everybody needs to be visible, and Richard is no exception. And his wife Nancy is keeping him alive in terms of his work by building a museum of his work, which is phenomenal. And so you want to make sure that you understand that there are a lot of things that you need to do to be able to stay visible. And so what I want you to do is just think in terms of it's time, but it's time plus something else, right? Time plus press releases, time plus shows, time plus marketing, time plus advertising, time plus a lot of other things. If you don't do those things, it takes a lot longer time. And it's like you're going into Schwab's, which was a soda fountain in Hollywood, and that's where Lana Turner was supposedly discovered. By the way, it turns out it's not true. It was a story. It made a good PR story. The idea of, oh, let's have 1,000 other women go into Schwab's and sit there and hope to get discovered. Well, they probably, whoever came up with that story was the owner of Schwab's, to get a lot of people sitting there hoping to get discovered. You're sitting there hoping to get discovered. Not likely to happen. You got to put yourself out there, and that's what branding is all about. I talk a lot about that in my book, Make More Money Selling Your Art. And it's a really good place to start. And it's, you're not investing a lot of money. It's like $25 or something like that. Okay. Speaking of time, we're out of it. We have one more quick question. So I'm going to do this quickly. One is, where do I start with social media, advertising, and websites? And I'll go back to what I said earlier. Figure out your goals first. Don't do your tactics before your goals. If you say, where should I advertise? Figure out your goals first before you advertise. It's the same thing. Okay. Read the book. And somebody else, Peter Stevenson, says, because of social media is so big these days, it seems like I don't need to do anything else. Do you need to agree? Yeah, it is big. You may have 100,000 followers. How many of them are buying art? If you're selling art and you're selling all you can sell, do that. Whatever you're doing, do that. But never put all your eggs in one basket. This artist I told you about had 1 million followers. Okay, most of them were artists who wanted to learn how to paint. And so unless you're deliberate about getting collectors in there, if you're talking on your social media account about how to teach how to paint, then you're not going to get collectors. If you're talking about things collectors care about and want to hear about, they'll follow you. Possibly. You got to figure out how to get in front of them, get them to follow you. And there are tactics. We'll talk about it another time and how to do that. But, just because you have a lot of people following you means nothing. It's like, hey, I'm in the phone book. There's 1 million other people in the phone book. So what? Nobody cares. Don't put all your eggs into one basket. You need to know what works. You need to go stand in the river where the money is flowing. Stand in the river where the audiences of buying people exist. I can't tell you if that's on social media or not. It is in some cases. It's not in some cases. It is in some magazines, not in other magazines. It is in my magazines. I know that works. But we also do social media. We have people who follow us on social media. So there, you can do that. But not anything works just because it's big. And don't put all your eggs in one basket. Never, ever put all your eggs into one basket. All right. Anyway, okay. So I hope this is helpful. If so, make sure to hit the subscribe button for Art School Live on YouTube. Go to YouTube and do that for us. That'd be great. And of course, give me a follow at Eric Rhodes. We also, I want to tell you guys that I'm doing a trip. And if you haven't seen the email about this, this is so cool. I'm taking a group of art lovers, art collectors, not artists only. It's not a painting trip. A lot of artists go. And we're going to spend 6 days in Venice. Yeah. And we're going to go behind the scenes. We have privileges and get into we have the Basilica privately. Otherwise, there's like thousands of people in there. We have it privately. You get to look at the artwork. You get to really get the feel for that. We have a lot of experiences like that. Then we're going on to Verona and Lake Garda and other places. And so it's going to be a spectacular trip. But this is the last week to sign up. And that's at finearttrip.com. So make sure you check that out. We'd love for you to go. We get to hang out together for about 10 days, which is really fun. I'm going to take 3 days before the trip in Venice and go painting. So if anybody wants to go on that, if you're on the trip, you can go with me on that too. Let's see here. I have a free gift for you, and that is 97 Incredible Art Tips. It's a video. It's a sampling of a lot of the videos we produced with great tips on it. It's yours free by going to artsecrets.com/free. Also, I'll just mention our next 2 online conventions are coming up for art. Pastel Live is coming up in September. The world's leading pastel artist teaching for 3 days, plus an optional 4th day for essentials and beginning. And go to pastellive.com for that. A lot of people coming. And check out the next one coming up in November, which is Realism Live, which is anything realistic. It's the most complete online conference for artists that we have, with all styles and approaches in realistic subjects, right? We don't do the whole modern abstract kind of thing, but it's realism. So people, faces, flowers, objects, landscapes, figures, portraits, 30 plus instructors, 4 days, Realism Live. And then Watercolor Live coming up in January. And then Acrylic, our brand new, coming up in March. No more questions for today, but you can submit yours. Send them to me, eric@pleinairmagazine.com, or come on camera next week. Every Monday, we're here at 12 noon, and we're here every weekday at 12 noon. We have free art lessons Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we have Feedback Friday on Fridays, where we're critiquing artwork. Send your artwork in. We've got a lot of it, but we'd love to have more. Reminder, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you tomorrow. I hope this has been helpful to you. Thanks. I'm Eric Rhodes. Bye.